Hello, everybody. Ooh, we got a lot of people here tonight. It looks like we got a lot of people interested in financial aid appeals. Um, yeah, pouring in. Look at you guys. Hey, so while we'll just give it a minute or two for everyone to join us here. Looks like a lot of you are doing it. I always like to ask if you wouldn't mind, just put it in the chat for a moment. Um, Let me know kind of general area, like where are we at in the country? Like East Coast, West Coast, middle of the country. Like to kind of hear where everybody's at. Um, okay. Oh, I see. I think we're getting just about everywhere represented. So this is great. So for those who are on the West Coast, I saw some like specifically, I even saw SoCal. I lived in SoCal for the about 28 years. Worked at USC. So I hopefully we'll have some insights about the financial aid appeals, if you will, with the California schools. And now I moved to Kansas. I saw someone said they're in Kansas and all that goodness. And we got Kevin Murphy with us tonight. He's over in Jersey, and so we got some representation over there. But definitely, we are very used to working with clients all over the country. In fact, I have some clients international as well. But oh, someone's from Iowa. I'm originally from Iowa, so good stuff. All right. Um,
JP, would it be okay if I were to pop the video on the screen real quick?
yeah, go for it.
I think I got
I
the
I
score.
hope this works. I love this video. This is perfect for this time of year.
Okay. Tell me if you can hear it when I start playing. Here?
I do not hear anything.
So who's going to do it?
Now I
Nothing.
do.
I'm not.
You do?
Yep.
Do it. He's just a kid. You can't ask him to do it.
Okay, I will do it. What's more nerve-wracking than getting into college? Opening the financial aid package. Should I do it fast or slow? Fast. No slow. No fast. Oh God, I can't remember the Band-Aid rule. Just open it.
What's it say? What's it say?
I don't know. It's been 1 or 4 years. Oh my God, how can I go to college if I can't even figure out the financial aid letter? Board. I see tuition.
Yes, they're giving us everything we needed. We're poor.
We were poor enough. I never stopped believing.
You know, if we worked a little bit harder, none of this would be possible.
Oh, it just called me.
Oh my goodness, that cracks me up every time.
Uh,
I'm curious, can anyone relate to that? That I've never seen that show, but I thought that's a clip that's I feel very appropriate. Um, and before we go on any further, one more quick question. Maybe don't need to put any answers in the chat, but maybe thumbs up or anything. How many of y'all have been to a previous webinar from College Aid Pro, like maybe a financial aid 101? I'm curious, like who can I ask pop quiz questions to? No, but no, this is great. Okay, good. So we're not going to go through really the basics of like how financial aid works, et cetera, et cetera. Tonight is really just focused on we're here. We got hopefully financial aid offers, and how do we appeal? How do we? I don't know if I want to say the word negotiate, but sort of. How are we going to negotiate, right? Um, so yeah, tonight we're going to talk about appeals. Before we get into it any further, I'll just also say, if you have questions, please ask, but put it in the Q&A, not the chat, because I'll admittedly get lost in the chat. So if you have questions, put it in the Q&A. I also like to joke and say, ask all your questions while I'm presenting, so Kevin has to type all the answers. But otherwise, but seriously, if you have questions about anything we said, put it in the Q&A. We'll try to clarify it. Because honestly, if you have the question, someone else probably does too. And before anybody asks, this is being recorded, and so you'll be provided a link to the recording tomorrow. And so no need to if you didn't hear something or if you got to leave early, totally fine. You'll get the recording. So anyway, with that, Kevin, you want to say hello?
Sure. I'll keep my intro really quick. You already said I'm in New Jersey, but I down the Jersey Shore. I'm in West Long Branch, New Jersey. I am one of the college financial aid experts here at CAP. I started doing this back in 2018, and since then I've worked with countless families, and I love what I do. And that's enough on my end, JP. I'll pass it over to you.
All right. As far as me, I kind of hinted at, I worked at USC. I started in the financial aid office. I was a director of financial aid. I worked in the dean's office, and I even was adjunct faculty for a while. So I have a lot of, I guess you could say, inside experience on how financial aid people think and whatnot. So and I worked with admissions, so I kind of know also how they think. So anyway, hopefully by the end of tonight, you'll feel like you've got some good insights and frankly get a better sense of what are your options when it comes to trying to maybe appeal and whatnot. So anyway, let's go with it. Let's you got the deck there, sir?
Oh yeah. Give me 1 second. I will start screen sharing. All right. I'll start back here and then I'll jump forward.
Okay. And just in case, if anybody's new tonight, and you've never heard of College Aid Pro until now, I think it's fair to say that we are on a mission to end this student debt crisis. And the way we try to do it is by empowering you, the family, on how and teach you how to shop smarter for college. I sometimes like to say we are trying to transform this journey to college, if you will. So I hope you really, by the end of this, again, feel empowered to take action and make and feel confident you're getting the quote unquote best deal from whatever college you guys end up committing to. Let's go forward. So if you haven't already, I would encourage you to set up the free MyCap account. MyCap is the software that College Aid Pro has developed, and this is where we track what colleges really do when you provide them your financial aid information, or frankly your GPA and test scores. What do they do with scholarships and offers, et cetera, et cetera. So think of it as a more accurate net price calculator, but for all the colleges all lumped together in one spot, so you don't have to go to multiple websites, and certainly more accurate than most colleges' net price calculators. So this is going to be your most powerful resource to know if you got a fair offer, should you appeal. We're going to always kind of rely on what do our calculations say here. So tonight we're going to kind of cover the when, the who, should you, and then how to appeal the financial aid offers that you received. So let's kind of go into all of the I guess the when first here. So go ahead.
Yep.
So rough timeline. Frankly, we should all be at step 4 to step 5 probably by now. You submitted college applications as early as last September, October, November, December, January. Submitted the financial aid forms as early as October of last year. Hopefully we've been getting those college acceptances, maybe a couple non-acceptances too, but hopefully we've been getting those college acceptances. I know there's some schools that still haven't yet announced the Ivies, and the UCs. Some UCs have, but I understand there's going to be some college acceptances still pending. But for those who have received a college acceptance, typically, if you're going to be awarded a merit scholarship, it's in that same award letter, that same notice from admissions, saying like, congrats, you've been accepted, and we would like to recognize your amazing awesomeness by awarding you such and such scholarship, right? So hopefully you're at that stage. And in fact, many of you, because I know all my clients are pretty much at this stage, they've also received financial aid offer letters. This comes from the financial aid office. Those financial aid offer letters provide a breakdown of the cost, tuition, room and board, indirect expenses. They provide, outline maybe any scholarships offered by admissions, any grants, maybe some loans, the work study, maybe all that good stuff. So the financial aid offer encompasses all the financial picture, the total financial picture for what you should budget for that year, for the freshman year. And so maybe you're at that stage 5. And depending on the school, maybe you're at stage 3, stage 4, or stage 5. Again, depends on that school. But we want to talk about the appeals. And frankly, I'm going to tell you, even if you're at stage 3 right now and you haven't yet received a stage, a financial aid offer, go ahead and go to the next slide for me. Basically, start the appeal process now. And by that I mean is like if you know something's changed or that you know you already have a situation that justifies an appeal, start gathering your information now. Don't wait to get the financial aid offer. Start doing the background work now. And as we say, be ready so that as soon as that financial aid offer comes, you're ready to follow up with your appeal. And follow up, I'd say, is key. Be consistent. Here we are, roughly mid March. You got 6 weeks or less, just under 6 weeks before we have to commit, right? And so, regular follow-ups. The schools they are reporting a huge increase in number of appeals this year. They're overwhelmed. I get it. So we don't necessarily want to, don't send them an email like 5 times in one day. Like, have you done it? Have you done it? Don't do that. But it's certainly worth, after you submit an appeal, give them 4 days maybe, and just touch base and say, hey, just want to make sure, do you need anything else? That's fair, but be consistent. Follow up. If you haven't heard, certainly if you haven't heard within 2 weeks, follow up. Okay. I think the key to know if you should appeal is also to go, you have to understand, I guess, the financial aid offer letter. There's some doozies out there that are just crazy difficult to understand what you're looking at. So you have to understand the components of that financial aid. And we've talked about this in other webinars before, but basically you're looking for grant money. That's free money. We like that, right? That's helping reduce the cost. That's you awarded based upon a financial need, the FAFSA, the CSS profile, you submitted your income, your assets, all that stuff to the school, and they award a grant, need-based grants. There's also scholarships. That's merit-based. For some reason, your student is awesome in something. Maybe it's grades. Maybe it's some sort of talent, playing a trumpet or whatever, playing a sport, but they are awarded a merit-based scholarship. We love that too because it's free, right? And that's obviously helping reduce the cost. There is a few other buckets of financial aid, though, that we don't really count so much as, like, certainly don't get excited about, but they are technically forms of financial aid. That's going to be your work study. If you're eligible based upon the FAFSA calculation, if you're eligible for work study, basically the student can earn some money to help pay some of those indirect costs. I call it the fun money, going out, go to the movies, buy Starbucks coffee, whatever. They earn it and pay themselves as they go throughout the year. And then there's loans. And let's be honest, that doesn't help lower the cost. If anything, that helps make the cost go higher because you're paying interest. But if from the perspective of, hey, you don't have to write a check for it right now, sure, it is financial assistance, but it is not making it cheaper. It's making it more expensive. But those are the components you're looking for. Did I receive any grants? Did I receive any scholarships? Yay, the free money. Do I get work study? Do we get some loans? And what does that mean for us when we're trying to figure out our actual net cost, and did we get a good offer? So let's look at some of them. I think we got some examples here. So I haven't seen probably most of these examples. So you're gonna see me react to it along with you, if you will, and go, what should we be on the lookout for? So first here, you see this is from Fairfield, and what you see highlighted at the very top, what catches my eye is that this is an estimated financial aid offer. There's a couple reasons it could be estimated. One, and this depends on timing, and I don't know the background on this one, but a couple reasons I will see an estimated financial aid offer is because sometimes schools will do this when they have a CSS profile, and maybe they even got the FAFSA results, but they haven't verified anything yet. Maybe they're looking for tax returns and all that stuff, and they're just trying to give you an early estimate because maybe you applied ED or EA, and they're just trying to give you an early offer letter so you get a sense and get excited, and it could be estimated for that reason. Another reason it can be estimated is because sometimes the budget isn't yet finalized. Depends on the school system, but the budget might not be finalized. And so their estimated costs are close, but they're not officially approved yet. So those are basically the two reasons that I might see an offer letter say it's estimated. So anyway, so just know that it technically can change a little bit. Let's look at the next, what do we got? Okay, so this is, all right, same school. So yeah, estimated here. And and as I see there at the bottom, your financial aid is estimated all required items are received and verification is complete. So that would tell me that when this was produced, they probably didn't have the tax returns yet. Maybe they didn't verify the numbers yet. But yeah, that just confirms what I thought. Now, I will say is if, let's say, the budget changes, if the cost of attendance in this, what I'm looking at here for awards, I'm looking at the grant and the scholarship, this person's getting both merit aid and need-based aid. One thing to keep in mind is, let's say their cost of attendance ends up going up, I'm making this up, another $1,000 for the year. Then that means your cost of attendance goes up $1,000. Therefore, your need for aid goes up $1,000. I would suspect then the grant would increase with it. The flip could be true too. If they say, hey, actually, oh golly, what school is it? Pepperdine. Yeah, Pepperdine just lowered their cost of attendance by about $4,000, and from their original offer letters. And so, like, if you lower the cost of attendance, in theory, then your need for aid goes down as well. So you might expect to see grant reduced there too. So anyway, just so you know that could happen because if things are still estimated. All right, let's look at Santa Barbara. So Santa Barbara, this is one of my examples. This one annoys me to no end. So earlier I said, scholarships are awarded based upon merit, grants are awarded based upon need. And this is important to understand because depending on the type of award, that dictates which office you're going to appeal to, right? And so when you look at this and you see this estimated California middle class scholarship, now this is very niche for the California residents here that are going to send their kid to a California school. The middle class scholarship is a state awarded, and it is not a scholarship. It is a grant. It's based upon your financial numbers. And then you see here the UCSB, University of California, Santa Barbara scholarship of $11,179. That is also not a scholarship. That is a grant. So, and I stress this because if you see the word scholarship, you should naturally go, oh, that's a scholarship, merit, award. I should go to admissions for that. But in this case, it's not. They use incorrect labels, and it drives my OCD crazy. But this would really be a situation where you would appeal to the financial aid office because this is really need-based grants, not scholarships. So just, again, you got to be aware of what you're really looking at because sometimes the schools just label it wrong. All right, let's look at another. ASU. Okay, so we highlighted it there. I see you cheated and gave me the arrow. What do I not like about this offer letter? They put the Parent Plus loan in there as a form of financial aid. Again, financial aid loans are not helping you cut the cost. And B, that's a loan you have to apply for. That's like saying, hey, you want to buy this house for $500,000? Hey, we're giving you financial aid. We're giving you a loan for $500,000. Like, no, that's not, you didn't help lower the cost. So be aware that there's lots of schools that are unfortunately doing this where they're putting a Parent Plus loan, they're listing and they're building it into the financial aid offer letter to make it look like your cost is lower. Or in this case, they say, look at your aid, it's $55,000. No, it's not. No, it's not. The financial aid, the free money is $29,500. That's way different than $55,000. So understand, again, the components of what you're looking at here. All right, let's look at the Spelman. Same thing. It's not highlighted, but it's at the bottom. They put in a Parent Plus loan. They're using that. So when they in their bottom headline there, it says projected net cost, remaining net cost. They're assuming you're taking out that Parent Plus loan. Again, it's not financial aid. That is not a financial aid loan. That is very misleading. That stuff really grinds my gears. Anyone know that reference? Anyway. All right, let's look at another one. Oh, you did highlight it there. All right.
I did. I've seen it.
Oh, this school. Yeah. So this is common a format and I hate this format, but I don't mind that they separate at the top the columns like direct costs and indirect costs. I'm fine with that. That for budgeting purposes, I'm good with that. But then they say, hey, estimated net cost And then put in parentheses, we're talking about the direct cost, not the total cost. So they're making that number artificially lower by $4,500. So where they say estimated net cost is 40,000, and then of course they subtract out the direct loan of 5,500. They say at the very bottom your estimated net cost is only 35,000 and change. You got to remember they're not including the indirect costs that are about 4,500 at the top. They just kind of forget to include that at the bottom. So you have to do the mental math to add that in when you're trying to figure out what's it really going to cost us to send our child to this school. So again, it's a common format. It royally irks me, but be aware of that. You got to really pay attention to what they're saying here, and how what costs do they leave out conveniently here. Okay, Drexel. Let's go to the other side of the coin here. Drexel is notoriously great at providing crystal clear financial aid offer letters. I love their color coding. I love everything that Drexel does with their financial aid offer letters. They make it very clear, like that scholarship is a scholarship, that grant is a grant. They break it down. They're on a quarter basis, clearly, so they break it down quarter by quarter by quarter. Look at the next screen. It should be. Yeah, I mean, again, bold, like at the top, what's the total cost of tenants? What's the gift aid? They are acknowledging what's the gift money, the free money. What's your net cost? They're not trying to throw in loans when they're telling you what your net cost is. They're saying, hey, after we determine your net cost, here's the other things that can help lower that cost, like work study or direct loans. So I love the way Drexel does it. This is great. And then they say at the very bottom, you'll see, Parent Plus loans are an additional option for you to help cover that cost. Or we offer a payment plan. Again, they're not trying to bake it into the offer letter and make their offer letter look better than what it is. They're being very honest about it. Drexel, A+ job on their offer letters. All right. Stevens, what do we got here? This is another example I really love. And golly, I just had another school that did this. But what I love about this is they directly tell you how they calculated their institutional SAI. So this is a school that uses a CSS profile. They tell you what the FAFSA is. You already know that because the FAFSA tells you that. But for those who did a CSS profile, you discovered the CSS profile doesn't tell you what the SAI is because every college that uses that CSS profile has their own formula. Stevens here, God bless them, they tell you what the SAI is. This is wonderful. I love it when they're very direct and very transparent about that. Because again, depending on your circumstances, you know right now, is there something to appeal here? Like, does that number seem way off compared to other schools, et cetera, et cetera? So this is a wonderful, I love the way they do this as well. Another A for them. Let's look at what else we got. So let's talk about who. I kind of alluded to this, right? So there's two types of free money: merit scholarships or need-based grants. If you're talking about merit scholarships, we're appealing to admissions 99% of the time. There's a couple exceptions, but 99% of the time, if you want to appeal a scholarship, you're going to go to admissions. And if you're appealing need-based grants, you're going to financial aid. Could you do both? Absolutely. I'm helping a family right now. The mom, I crafted an appeal letter for them for their son to send to admissions. I crafted an appeal letter for mom to send to financial aid. Immediately she was asking me, like, why are we asking for two different numbers? I'm like, because they're two different appeals, two different strategies, everything. So yes, you can absolutely appeal to both. All right. Let's look at, so need-based aid, the financial aid appeals. You got to remember, financial aid, that those grants and everything were awarded based upon the income and assets you provided. So maybe that was on the FAFSA, maybe it was the FAFSA and the CSS profile, whatever. You have to remember, though, the income, it came from 2 years prior, basically. So for all of you that are class of 2026, going to start college this fall of 2026, it was using your 2024 income. I don't know about you, but I know a lot of people that have lost jobs or are still unemployed, or maybe they found another job, but they're making less. At the end of the day, their current situation is not at all what their 2024 numbers look like. Okay, if that's the case, ding, ding, ding. That's a good clear warning that I probably need to do an appeal if I'm making less. Now, of course, if you're making more, no, they'll find out soon enough. But don't tell them that. But so I'm just going to just say, yeah, if your income is changed significantly, just know that's probably. I mean, for the worst, that's probably a good indicator that you're eligible and maybe should do a need-based appeal. Let's take a look at what else we got. All right. You want to cover these? And I'll start answering some quick Q&A.
Sure. They
All right.
there some good questions are coming in the Q&A, so keep it coming. But should
So
we
just
appeal?
remember, no more questions now that Kevin's talking. No, I'm kidding.
We got what I 29 done so far. But all right, should you appeal? My honest answer to this is yes. I think every family should try. It's more of a matter of setting the expectation. Will you be successful, or maybe you won't be? And in terms of like a high likelihood of success or a good candidate for an appeal, think private colleges. A lot of times you've got way more wiggle room there and more flexibility. Also, if you had a retirement distribution or a capital gain or one-time bonus or any one-time income in the base year, which for everyone with a senior would be 2024, it's an appeal. If you're divorced or separated or even remarried, there's a lot that could be happening here. One, maybe you got divorced after filing the FAFSA or the CSS profile. Maybe you filed your taxes married filing jointly. If that's the case, I hope you manually separated your information. Maybe you're remarried and they're considering your new spouse's information and you want that to be part of your appeal. There's just a lot that is going on in a two household situation that you can try to address on appeal. Here with IM/FM colleges, so a couple of things. One, some schools might use the higher of the two. They might use the higher of your federal SAI, or they might use the higher of your institutional SAI. But also, it's important to know what you're saying to a school. Like, you're not going to mention equity in your primary home to an FM school because your primary home equity doesn't even go on the FAFSA. So it's also important to know essentially what reasons you're going to use on the appeal based on the school's methodology. If you own a business, this is another situation where a lot can be going on. It depends on how the business was listed on the CSS profile, if the business has any depreciation or losses, even the assets that are listed on the business tax return. The schools can find and look for a lot of different things. It could get a little bit complex, but business owners usually have a reason or two to appeal as well. Also, sometimes if you own a business, your income might fluctuate. It's another appeal. Now, if you have a better offer from a competing college, that's absolutely a good reason for an appeal. And you don't want to just tell them, hey, we got, a $40,000 scholarship resulting in a lower net price from school X, right? You actually want to show them the offer. Now, bad candidates for an appeal, and I've been answering a lot of questions on this so far, but let's think the flagship public universities like a Penn State, right? Probably not going to be successful. Some of the other public universities, I was also mentioning this in the Q&A before, like, could you have success at University of Arizona? Of course, right? University of Arizona, though, is a little bit more generous when it comes to merit scholarships. So it really is going to be specific to the school and also specific to your circumstances. But generally speaking, flagship public universities probably going to have a low chance on appeal. Also, if your financial situation stayed the exact same and you had no one-time income, anything like that. So again, it doesn't mean you shouldn't appeal. It's just a matter of setting proper expectations. Do you have a good chance of success or do you have a low chance of success? Now, in terms of evaluating your financial aid award, it's important to look through every offer you get from the colleges and understand, hey, well, one, did you do your homework? Did you use MyCap? Did you do a net price calculator? Like JP, you were talking about the net price calculator with Connecticut College the other day. Like, did you do your homework? And how does that compare to your actual offer? Cost of attendance. So you want to make sure you review that minus your SAI because the difference equals your need. And how much of that is the school giving you? And I'm going to screen share. You know what? Actually, I'm going to screen share this now. Bear with me. It's going to take 1 minute because I didn't have it set up on my computer. And while I get this called up, JP, could you answer a question or two live?
I was just about to type one. I'm gonna I hope I can explain this adequately, but there's a great question here about like, hey, our financial aid award letter only included unsubsidized direct loans. Can we appeal for subsidized loans? There are two potential scenarios this occurred. And this is something I want to hear everyone to hear because it's one reason is because it's not so good, and one reason is because it's very good. And so understand, I'm going to use numbers here to give you an example. So if a school says our sticker price is 50,000 and you had an SAI of 70,000, or just anything above the 50, you therefore had a negative need, you're going to only qualify for that unsubsidized direct loan. Okay. And I'm talking like the FAFSA said your SAI was. So the only way you could appeal for subsidized is because was there a change in your circumstances that adjust the FAFSA's formula to that your SAI would drop below the sticker price. Okay. So in other words, it dropped from like 70,000 now to like 45,000. Well, now you have a need, and yeah, that some of that unsubsidized could become subsidized. The other scenario, though, and why I say it could be a very good reason you didn't get it and you don't want to say squat, is because let's say again your the school's cost of attendance was 50,000. Let's say you had an SAI of 20, therefore you needed 30, and that school gives you $30,000 in free money. And then because they're amazing and they're wonderful and you should love them, what they're able to do is give you then the full $5,500 subsidized. I'm sorry, the full 5,500 direct loan, but it would be all unsubsidized because they met your need with free money. So in that scenario, the only way your unsubsidized could become subsidized is you'd have to say, "Hey, take away that free money and give me that subsidized loan instead." That would be, I won't say what that would be, but that would be wrong. I'll just say that. Don't do that. So it totally depends on, you're either one of those two scenarios if all you saw was unsubsidized loans. And so, like I said, if it's the first case because you just have too high of an SAI, yeah, did you have a change in your circumstances that warrants the lowering the SAI and qualifying for need-based aid? Or is it a situation that the school was amazing and gave you so much free money, they paid your full need with free money, and therefore there's no more need left? Yeah, you don't want to say anything about saying, "Oh, change my unsub to sub," because that means they have to take away free money.
Oh yeah. So what I wanted to screen share with everyone is if you need to evaluate your college offers, which everyone should, right after you create your free MyCap account, which JP, could you drop that mycap.collegeapro.com in the chat?
Absolutely.
Thank you. You would create your free account and you would upload your offers. And I skipped right to this just for the sake of time, but right, we're in the compare award section. You would add the award, you would pick the school. So let's just say it's Amherst College. You would drag drop, and then you'd be able to compare the awards. And you can see here the appeal evaluation would be able to tell you if you have a strong chance or a low chance. Again, low doesn't mean no, don't try. And strong doesn't guarantee success, but it's going to give you the ability to have a sense of, do we have a good chance of winning or do we not? Let me stop sharing that, and then I'll go back to the deck. For everyone who can't tell, screen sharing is definitely not my specialty. All right. Perfect. All righty. So now I imagine that this is something everyone's been waiting for, right? How do you appeal? And it's definitely I think the biggest question that we've been kind of building up to tonight. But so we've gotten a lot of questions. Can you email the school? Do you have to fill out a form? What do you do? Every single school has their own process. The first thing you need to do is you need to identify, right, what's your family strategy going to be? Whether it's going to be need-based, whether it's going to be merit-based, who you're going to contact. And then in addition to that, what are the reasons, right? What are the reasons that are going to win you more money on appeal? Now, once you figure out the process, it might require sending an email, might require writing a letter, might require filling out a form. So just identify that, right? Some need-based appeals, you might have a change in circumstance form. There might be an online form like Syracuse that asks you a bunch of questions about your monthly expenses. It really depends. But again, identify that process so you follow what the school's asking for. Now, pretty much every appeal is going to require a statement, right? That's the appeal letter. So you're going to need to craft a really easy to understand in terms of like getting to the point, keeping it very, obviously friendly, professional, all of that, but appeal letter outlining your family's circumstances. And that's probably one of the most important steps in the process. If I were to say, I don't know if you agree with that, JP, or not, but I think step 3 here is probably up there in terms of top steps.
Yeah, I've seen righteous cases for an appeal, but the letter was so poorly written that it got denied.
The appeal letter we were talking about in before the presentation.
Yeah.
But you also, if you're going to be saying, job loss, if you're going to be saying medical expenses, whatever the reasons are, have supporting documentation. You bet the colleges are very, very, very likely to ask for it, including a signed copy of your tax returns. Now, it's very, students should be involved, right? Students should be part of this. Students are the one who are ultimately going to college. Now, if you're doing a need-based appeal or you're talking about a job loss, things like that, maybe your student's not the one who says that to the Office of Financial Aid, right? Maybe you're the one, but it doesn't mean that your student can't be involved and can't be part of it. And if your student's doing a merit appeal, please do not try to contact the Office of Admissions for them. It does not look good. It does not come across the right way. You want to continue to follow up with the school. You want to continue to demonstrate interest. You want to play the card. That's the school that you want to go to, that you're doing everything you can to make it work. And then someone asked this before, how do we know if we appeal a second time? I'll be honest, that's tough, right? That's going to be depending on your circumstances and depending on the outcome of the appeal. But there are a lot of situations where you're going to need to appeal 2, 3 times. There's some situations where one appeals it. So it truly depends. Now, merit appeals. So we mentioned this before, but just to reiterate, the Office of Admissions controls merit appeals. Schools do typically follow their own process. They also typically have their own time frames, right? Some you might hear back within a day or 2. Some you might hear back within 2 weeks. These are definitely student-driven. New information matters. And again, anything that's mentioned that you have supporting documentation for, show it. Now, in terms of need-based appeals, this is going to be usually led by the parents, but the student's still involved. This would be going to the Office of Financial Aid. And once again, each school has its own process. And you really want to focus on things that are not on your FAFSA or CSS profile, circumstances that the schools are unaware of. And you want to highlight any changes, right? You want to highlight things that are going on in your life, particularly financially, that really just paint the picture of you need more support. And in terms of valid need-based appeal items, right? So think about home equity, change in circumstances, change to marital status, medical expenses, business owner, one-time events, and strain on cash flow. Now, writing the appeal statement, you really, really, really want to like share your story. You want to be personal. You don't want it to be like 3 or 4 pages, but you really do want to be genuine with it. And this is a very, very solid expression for appeals. Sugar works better than vinegar. You really want to be kind. I don't want to suck up, and you want to be nice. I don't know if you'll, from working in the financial aid office, I don't know if you'll agree with that or not, JP, but at least that's what I see typically work. Sucking up always helps. Any thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, because I mean, you got to understand the people working in financial aid are they're there because they probably love the school just as much as admissions. They have an extremely difficult job. They're understaffed. They're underpaid. The classic was I loved it when families who made like triple what I made were crying poverty, and I'm like, yeah, like I would love to be as poor as you. But so when they came in demanding, and it was very easy for me to just say no, you know, but those who came into me and I was just like, they genuinely just show like I could tell they genuinely want to be there. They're genuinely excited. They genuinely were appreciative of everything I was trying to do for them and whatnot. I'll be honest, I tried harder for them. I would try absolutely everything I could for them. So yeah, sugar catches, or what is it? Yeah, honey catches more flies than vinegar does.
Yeah. You can ask for a specific amount of money, right? If you know that $5,000 would make that school affordable for you, you know that that's what you need. Maybe comes in line with some of the other offers you received, you can absolutely ask for it. There are some colleges that that actually require Fordham, LMU, I believe. Trying to think off the top of my head, but some colleges actually require you to tell them how much more you need. Other colleges, it's an open door. So that's absolutely a solid strategy. Show them, right? Show them anything you're saying, documentation, proving what you're telling them. Don't just, try to include it as part of a letter. Challenge any expenses that they are unaware of, right? Think about everything that the FAFSA and CSS profile asks for, but then also think about what it doesn't ask for. Be really persistent. We've reiterated that a few times tonight. Challenge the methodology, right? Try to understand what schools are counting, what they're not counting. Really be, I'd say, as detailed as possible with it. And that's definitely a good angle. Siblings, this is a big one. And I just did an appeal to Chicago about this. That was the one I put in the Slack channel earlier, JP, but challenge siblings. Some schools, even if they're CSS profile schools and they give a sibling discount, sometimes it's not automatic. Even if it's a private FAFSA only school and you have 2 kids going to college at the same time, you absolutely want to bring that up on appeal. You definitely want to mention home equity. Home equity could play a really big role in terms of how much financial aid you get from certain schools. And don't submit the deposit, right? So I don't want to say try, do not submit the deposit until you're done with the appeals process. Now, for some reason, if the appeals process goes past May 1st, aside from asking for an extension, in that case, maybe you have to submit the deposit and just continue the appeals process, but you really want to try to get this done before May 1st, which is why in the beginning, JP said, start now, right? Start preparing all of this now. This is just a visual of some of the documents that a college can ask for. This is Barnard. You see like cash flow worksheet, signed copy of the tax returns, a recent mortgage statement, savings, checking accounts. This was really detailed. This is not typical, right? A typical appeal, maybe tax returns, right? Maybe some medical bills, things like that. But this is how detailed documentation certain schools could ask for, and it completely depends on the reasons that you use as part of your appeal. But think about how much time it takes to put all of this together. Again, that's why you want to try to start as early as possible. All right, talking about home equity. Do you want to talk about Occidental or do you want me to?
Go for it. I'm just going to
Got it.
keep replying to emails or questions.
You got it. So for Occidental is one of the schools that does count home equity. And home equity was playing a really big role for this family in terms of how much they received in this need-based Oxy College grant. And you can see here, let me click. They got a $12,500 merit scholarship, but then they also got about $22,000 in need-based grants. So a total of around $34,000 in free money in gift aid. Before moving on to the next slide, I do want to just right here point out they gave a low interest loan, which I've over the years have seen quite a few schools do. That is something that's obviously not free money, but definitely like if a school gives you a low interest loan, look into the terms, things like that. I've seen that quite a bit. But anyways, back to this. So the main reason for this appeal was the treatment of the family's home equity, right? They couldn't access it. So that's what we fought for. And we were successful, right? So before they had the roughly $34,000 and after, you see that grant went up to about $49,500. So an increase of almost $28,000, all because of home equity. That's a lot of money based on equity in a house. So that's why it's important to bring that up on appeal. Now, Boston University, this is another example of a complex situation, right? This family had 2 children in college at the same time. They owned businesses, they owned rental properties, right? Everything that if you check the boxes for a complex situation, they checked every box. And those were all the things that we had to address on appeal. And it was definitely a lengthy and challenging appeals process, multiple appeals. They started with nothing. They got no money from Boston University aside from the $3,500 federal direct loan. And it was this was last year. It was a $90,000 school. Now, after the first appeal, bear with me real quick. I just want to click once more. After the first appeal, they got just about $29,000. But we knew that wasn't enough based on the circumstances outlined in the appeal. There was still quite a bit of room for more. So we pushed back. We got someone else involved. We had to, essentially escalate it. And that being said, they came back with another $16,000. So a total of almost $48,000 in additional aid from the before to the after. That includes work study down on the bottom, as well as the student loan. So just a really solid outcome here for this appeal. Now, this was an appeal we did for NYU, and this had to deal with, we were saying before, divorced families, remarried, separated. This had to deal with that. And this was a situation where originally they didn't even try to get the other parent's information waived, the non-custodial parent's information waived. And you can see, oops, I went a little too fast here, sorry. You can see the estimated net cost originally was about $51,000. They were getting about $49,800 in free money. This is a need-based grant, just fun fact. NYU is one of the schools that also tends to call like need-based grant scholarships. So keep an eye out for that. But that being said, after the appeal, after we were able to get that other parent's information waived, that got increased to $81,000. The cost went down from 51 down to 19. So it's a really sizable difference for this family, and just quite a good outcome, if I were to say. Now, I think we're trying to cover some circumstances that might resonate with folks on the call. So maybe this resonates with some families, but this was a situation where income decreased, but the bigger situation was that assets were now a lifeline. So the family had roughly $90,000 in income in 2023, but then that got cut in half. It went to about $45,000 due to a permanent disability. And the $1.5 million that they reported in assets, that went from being, all right, just, savings to everything they had, because their income not only was cut in half, but it was basically permanently cut in half. And because of that, we appealed all of that, the drop in income, we appealed the assets, and the family was able to go from $33,000 originally to an increase, almost double, of another $23,000. Now, obviously, they didn't remove everything. They didn't make every change that we asked for, but that's still a really good outcome. And that's a big enough change where in this situation, it allowed the student to go to that school. Someone was asking before about Syracuse. They've been fun to deal with this year, but this is about Syracuse. So last year, I think everyone knows there was a New York Times article about it, but last year they weren't giving pretty much anyone money. And this family got nothing, right? Literally no money besides the federal direct student loan. And they ultimately had to submit 5 appeals over the course of, it was like 3 months. And they just continued to go back and forth, continued to demonstrate strong interest, right? They even referenced the projections. And in addition to that, they really fought for the amount of money that they deserved. And the outcome reflects that, from $0 to $60,000 a year in aid, which is $240,000 over the 4 years. So just a really, really big outcome for this particular family. And I would say Syracuse is definitely not as bad as they were last year in terms of awarding aid, but it's a lengthy process and not a fun process to deal with them. Okay, now in terms of some other outcomes or some other situations, right? So how you fill out the forms, that even plays a role, right? There might be things that you can do differently moving forward, maybe even for younger children, and that's what happened here. This first family, they were regular on our office hours. They were a DIYer. They'd been using MyCap for a very long time, watching all of our presentations, so they did this on their own. But then they came to us for appeals. They hired us to help with appeals, and they ended up saving it at SLU, St. Louis University, $38,000. This was a divorce situation. We had to update some numbers. A lot went into it, right? But that's a really good outcome. But even better, their younger student employed different strategies, right? Pre-planning ahead of time, selecting the right schools as well. And we were ultimately able to save him over $300,000. And that's just a really, really good outcome. Now, this next one here I want to reference, it does matter. And JP, you were saying something about this the other day with AI and everything else, but it really does matter who you appeal to, right? Between professional judgment and even just essentially who has the ability to change an offer, it can make a big difference. This one person, she appealed to University of San Diego twice, denied twice. Literally within a week of hiring us, going to a different person, $20,000. So who you appeal to can really make a difference in the outcome. This is a true story that I literally, for this slide, added up all of the grants on the Students Awards. But they came to us, it was like a year and a half ago, with basically assuming they're not going to get any money. And that's like the worst assumption I truly believe a family can make when starting this process. But they were like, nope, we're not going to. The student has millions in a trust, even in income from the trust, a substantial amount, not going to get any need-based aid. $560,000 in need-based grants. And no, we did not leave the trust off of the FAFSA or the CSS profile. It just, there's certain rules in terms of on the FAFSA, who has to report assets, what can actually exclude assets, and it really benefited this family. Lastly, this was a business owner. A family appealed Princeton 3 times last summer. Gotten really nowhere with them. Just a lot of back and forth, a lot of time wasted. They said the right things with our help, and it took 2 months addressing the business losses as well as assets, and they were able to get Princeton from 94,000 down to 42,000. So if you own a business, you might have to fight for it, but it's definitely worth it, as you can see from this outcome. That was one. Depreciation, assets listed on the tax return. There was a lot going on there. We're showing this because appeals, everyone always says, like, is it bad? If we appeal, will it reflect negatively on our family? Will it impact our students' acceptance? No, it's a part of the process. These numbers prove it, right? Last year, we got over $5 million. This year to date, we're over $1 million. And that's just for the really, we haven't gotten into the thick of outcomes for appeals for class of 2026. So most of that is from early decision students. But like, this is an important step in the process that no one should skip over. And there's a lot of money on the line. I would definitely argue that this is a more important part of the process than even searching for things like private scholarships, because the outcomes and the amount that you can get from the colleges on appeal, it's substantial. And also it tends to be, depending on the school and the type of appeal, could be recurring. So with that, you definitely want to spend time and devote it to this process. And someone was asking before, like, what's the expectation for an appeal? And you can see the numbers are kind of all over the place. JP, was it you or is it someone else on the team who just got 90 grand from NYU? It's like that.
I did last year, but I did not recently.
So, but like, got it last year, and it's like, you can only get 90 grand from NYU because it costs 100. You can't get 90 grand from a school that's 60. And also just the types of appeals, the reasons, everything, your family's circumstances, there's going to be a wide range. I would say 2 grand a year, even 1,000 a year, is still a big success, because if you take the 2 times 4, it's $8,000 over the 4 years. That's a large amount of money for a little bit of work. So don't think that there's an amount too small, but also don't set an expectation that you're going to be a family that gets, 74,000 like this family did at Colby, or 60,000 from Syracuse, but just hope for the best possible outcome and put all efforts into the appeals process. But again, you can really see that appeals result in totally different outcomes, and it does depend on the school, but it also depends on the reasons. And I said this before, but I want to say it once more. It is part of the process. It will not hurt your student's admission offer. So please make sure not to skip over this step. Even if you think you're a bad candidate for an appeal, I would still say give it a shot.
Yeah, I can share, like, one of my families today. We were chatting, and it was a family that, like, should never have appealed, because I did some very proactive strategies with them and cut their costs by like 25,000 a year. Some might say got a little greedy and they wanted to still do an appeal. And so I against my judgment, I said, okay. And I helped them, right? Basically, the school came back with a response today from the vice provost of enrollment services, like the head honcho, and said, no, we're not approving that appeal. And then they gave follow-up offers like, if this is too great of a cost, maybe look at starting at a different school and we can work out a long-term plan to transfer here and all that stuff. Like, they gave them alternative things, but at no point did they say, we're withdrawing your application, like we rescinded your admissions. Like, that doesn't happen. Yeah. So at the end of the day, the worst thing is they just say no.
exactly. The worst thing they can say is no. We have a few more things to share, but I do just want to actually, I'll share something first. There's 2 questions that I want to answer live, but I'm going to put a link to the page I'm about to share in the chat. And let me stop sharing. One of these days, JP, I'm going to get good at screen sharing.
I'm going to blame your computer.
I know, right? You know, you can actually see up here a Princeton appeal letter to the left.
Yeah.
Little tab. But anyways, so we are offering everyone an appeal assessment. I'm sure all of you are wondering right now, do we have a good case for an appeal? Do we have a bad case? Is there a chance? Is there not? So let us talk it through with you. Let us determine if you have a good case, a bad case, or if you benefit from our help. And you do have to book that by tonight. As you can imagine, we are absolutely slammed this time of year. So we extended availability all the way until 3/31, but you do have to, I mean, there's so many people on tonight's call. You do have to book by tonight and make sure that you do take us up on this. This is a really critical step in the process. If you do want us to help, right, you can view the details now. If you're like, everything you talk about tonight, I need help with this, I'm definitely a candidate for an appeal, then go for it. We do try to talk to everyone first, because anyone who works with us, we're not going to just say hire us to everyone, right? We want to make sure that you truly have a good case for an appeal, and we would truly improve the outcome. But that being said, you can view the details. We do help families with this whole process, back and forth with the colleges, writing the letters, you name it. And let's say that you're a DIYer and you've got the free version, and right now you can only put 3 schools in your account. Well, you're going to need to upgrade to premium to be able to compare all the offers and, you know, view multiple awards beyond 3 schools. And then tomorrow at some point, you'll see the webinar recording here. So this is something that, again, I just dropped in the chat. I'm also going to just drop the link to schedule a free assessment with us as well. Yes, I just shared the link again. Hold on, I'm going to share the other one too. Sorry, someone just wrote that in the chat.
Yeah, I can do it.
I did that one too. Okay, there's 2 things that I want to add real quick, and then JP, I'm sure there's some things that you want to add, but I'll leave this screen sharing just in case anyone has questions. But someone asked, their student applied early decision and they had to pay a deposit. Are they, and this is their words, are they screwed? No. Right, you're not completely screwed or anything like that. You can still appeal. It does make it a little bit harder, but you absolutely can still try. I thought that was important because I'm sure we still have some early decision families on tonight's call. And then there was one more that was, oh, if you don't have all the decisions yet, yeah, please still schedule. You don't need all of the offers to talk to us. You just need to know what schools your student likely wants to go to. Yes, Sharon, I just did an appeal for SCAD tonight, actually. We do have a lot of appeals with them. I'm trying to find the question that I thought was, oh, someone had asked, do they appeal to every school? No, please don't do that. Appeal to the school that your student wants to go to, not every single school that they've been accepted into.
Yeah, someone else asked, and my response was, I tend to, because usually a lot of kids still haven't, fully decided which school. So I usually say, like, appeal to the top 2 or 3 schools that are on their list. And then sometimes if there's a rival school that maybe is really not a school that they're interested in, I might still do an appeal with the rival school, assuming the numbers make sense to do so, only in hopes to leverage it against the more preferred school later,
But not
and
every
I will say a
school
lot of great questions, but some of them are just getting into a little bit too much. Like I'm saying, a lot of the times I'm going, we would need to see the details. We need to know the numbers. We need to see what you submitted. We need more info. So, for those, I'd say, honestly, just, I put it in the chat too, and Kevin did too, but book a consult, talk to one of the pros. And they'll be honest with you. If there's a legit opportunity to do an appeal, they'll tell you. If there isn't, they'll tell you.
We're very blunt.
We're not going to waste your time. So, but yeah,
we're very, very honest and direct. We know the schools that you're likely to get more money from, the circumstances you're likely. We also know the ones that you're not. I would say if you are interested in having us help and you already know it, right, you can look at the details on the page that we shared. We are running out of availability. Actually, while we were doing this, Matt Carpenter, our co-founder, just actually agreed to work with a few families as well, and another one of our co-founders did too. So we just increased our availability from, it was one about an hour ago. Now we're up to 11 spots left to help with appeals. So that is something that if you heard reasons tonight, if you heard anything that we said and it resonated with you and you're like, yep, this is my situation, I'm going to need to appeal, job loss, whatever the situation is, you can absolutely take advantage of that. But also do not miss the opportunity to talk to us about this. And we're getting to that point where you really want to figure out, are you appealing? Are you not? But what's the reasons? What documents do you have to put together? You name it. So please do not delay this process.
We're
University
getting
of
a lot of
Rochester-
questions like, have you appealed to a certain school, or can you appeal to this school or versus that school? Yes, we've appealed to every school that it probably exists. So there isn't. I don't think a school we've never appealed to. And yes, there's never a school that I would not try. So I'm just going to nip those questions in the bud. There is no such thing as a school I would not try.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally agree. Maybe some of the online universities or things like that we haven't appealed to, but like if we're talking about pretty much any of the 4,000 schools in the country, we've probably had experience with it. Anything you want to add, JP? We did really good on time tonight, I feel like.
Yeah, I tried to be succinct and all that. The key is, again, is I'd say is, and I'm being sincere about this. The key is plug your information into MyCap if you haven't done so already, and put it in accurate. Garbage in equals garbage out. So put in accurate data, put in the schools. That's going to be your first kind of visual, like, oh, for example, if a school gave you $20,000 in aid and you're thinking, oh, that's a really good offer, but MyCap says you probably should have got 30. Hello, now you have a barometer to kind of go, oh, maybe I should ask for more. And again, no, is it a merit appeal that you're appealing? Is that what you want to negotiate? Is it a need-based grant that you need to address? It depends on the, obviously your circumstances, but just know, that 99% of the time merit scholarships are going to admissions. Financial aid, need-based grants is going to the financial aid office. As Kevin said earlier, the merit scholarships to admissions should be led by the student. Nothing irks us more when a parent says, hey, my kid's so great, you should give him more scholarship. That's an easy reject, and makes me also think, is this kid going to survive college if the mom and dad are writing this letter? And then when it comes to need-based aid, yeah, of course, if you've been laid off and you're withdrawn from retirement, I don't expect your kid to know the financial details. So that's appropriate that you as a parent share that information with financial aid. But I mean, in a nutshell, that's it, right? That's the simplest way I would highlight it. But the idea is, obviously every situation is far more complex. Like I said to Kev, I think I blurted earlier, I've seen situations that had righteous reasons for an appeal and they got denied. And it's because the way they organized it, the way that they just didn't do it right. I had a case last year, I'll tell you, and I'm sorry to keep this long, but I had a case last year where a mom had what should have been a slam dunk appeal as far as the situation goes. And she was focused on 3 schools: USD, University of San Diego, Chapman, and USC. She did it on her own, got nothing, went nowhere, all denied. I came in, out of frustration, she hired me. I came and looked at it, figured out why, everything went wrong. I corrected the appeal, rewrote everything, all that stuff, got the documentation all lined up. And USD and Chapman approved it instantly and gave her like an extra $50,000 freshman year alone. USC admittedly was still, and it pains me because that's my old school, they were the jerk school and still said no. you don't bat 1,000 every time. We don't always get what we want, but got 2 out of 3, and as Meatloaf said, that ain't bad. So
But it's such a good point though. So like that appeal that we showed before with Colby, that's 74,000. Did the same appeal to Wesleyan. They also got about 70 grand, 75,000, whatever the number was. Did the same appeal to Middlebury. Middlebury gave them nothing. So like some schools are just jerk, I guess is
yeah,
what you said. But
sometimes it
like,
just depends on who was working that file, and sometimes schools just don't have the funds, and they'll never publicly state that, but it just depends. Um, but yeah, the appeals are probably, I'd say, in the financial aid process, is by far for me, I feel like the most complex, complicated part of the process, if you will.
I also feel like this is a part of the process where when it comes to the amount of money that's on the line, aside from like building the school list, things like that, this is where there's real money to be won. And if you do this right, you'll be smiling and you'll be happy for the next 4 years. But this is a really important part of the process. I have to show this because the last time you and I did a presentation together, I think we ran out of availability live.
Yeah, we did.
There. We're almost there. So I don't know if you remember, like there was tons of availability here, but now if you look, like there's availability on the 24th. How do I get back to the here? But it's starting to dwindle. So again, please take us up on this. Please book this before the end of the night. And I'll just say, we wish you all luck with this process. We get it. It's stressful. You're almost at the finish line. You're almost there. But this is an important step. Please take your time. Try to make your case as strong as possible. Again, we're here with you. We know it's stressful. We're stressed, trust me. But we're almost there. I don't know if you want to add anything, JP.
No, I nothing that you haven't said. I'd just say it is a stressful time. I know it is. And it is for the schools too. So just remember, treat them like a human. Be kind. I don't recommend calling and yelling and screaming. I used to have parents do that with me. It didn't go well.
Don't try to haggle and pretend like you're.
Yeah, don't make it obvious either. Yeah. Never use the word negotiate. Mm-hmm. I remember a family did that to us on an admitted day, for freshmen. It was a Saturday morning. I was already not happy that we were coming in on a Saturday morning, but they literally sat down and said, "Here's what UCLA's given us. You should give us more." And I said, "UCLA is a fine school. Go there."
Deposit.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a right way and a wrong way to talk to the financial aid office.
Absolutely. But all right, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight. We hope you enjoyed this, and we hope that we gave you some peace of mind and that you found everything we talked about valuable. Bye.